Before the name drops in rap lore, Lorenzo "Fat Cat" Nichols was born into a divided world in Birmingham, Alabama in 1958, where he spent the first 10 years of his life here under his grandmother's care. But everything changed in 1968 when he moved to Queens to be with his mother. New York, a city on the brink, with heroin quietly creeping into its streets. With his mother Louise working endless nursing shifts, the streets became his real parent. School didn't last long. He dropped out before 9th grade and later joined the Seven Crowns gang. In 1976 marks his first major mistake. In a pool room, he meets Eddie Gardner, a legendary stick-up kid. That night, the pair robbed 2 locations. But during the robbery, customers recognize Lorenzo, and the robbery gets him an 18-year prison sentence at just 17 years old. In 1980, after serving just 2.5 years, he was released by the parole board. Upon release, he made connections with Howard "Pappy" Mason and Pretty Tony Furtado. Furtado, an established dealer from Queens, mentored Fat Cat, provided him with an Italian supplier which sparked the start of his empire. Mason, who he met inside prison, became an enforcer for him, but later formed his own crew, Bebos, in the mid-1980s, which would become a significant player in the drug game, netting up to $200,000 per month in profit, which Nichols supplied. Fat Cat's sister Viola was also in a relationship with Mason and worked for him, which further cemented their ties. While others fought over corners, Fat Cat thinks wholesale. He supplied heroin, cocaine, and marijuana to street dealers. The price of a kilo of cocaine sells for $50,000, and his operation begins to grow rapidly, spreading through southeast Queens like a spider's web. His headquarters becomes Big Mac's Deli, inherited from his father-in-law. His operation is a true family business. His mother Louise handles money. His wife Joanne, street name Mousy, manages legitimate fronts. His enforcers are carefully chosen. Brian "Glaze" Gibbs, so violent even Fat Cat has to restrain him, and Joseph "Mike Bones" Rogers, the arsenal keeper. By 1985, Fat Cat's operation brings in $20 million yearly. He owns multiple properties, apartment buildings, game rooms, legitimate businesses. His presence on 150th Street, known simply as The Block, is undisputed. In his rabbit fur coat and gold jewelry, he cuts an imposing figure, a stocky, bearded man with a linebacker's neck and a head so large it dominates every photo. And that's where his nickname Fat Cat comes from. But beneath the flash lies a calculating mind. But in July 29, 1985, due to tip-offs and informants, 30 officers raid Big Mac's Deli. 2 officers, Sergeant McGinnis and Detective Sullivan, find Fat Cat in his back office, sitting on 2 loaded pistols. The raid nets $180,000 in cash, cocaine, heroin, marijuana, and a desk drawer containing guns. Fat Cat makes bail paying $70,000, but his parole officer Brian Rooney isn't fooled by his story about buying a sandwich and sends him back to prison. 2 months later, on October 10, 1985, Perry Bellamy, an associate of Fat Cat, arranged to meet Rooney. Rooney was sitting in his car on 119th Avenue near 155th Street in Jamaica when a car pulled up and let off 5 shots. It was later claimed Nichols did not intend for Rooney to be killed, but rather roughed up to miss a crucial hearing. Even from prison, Fat Cat maintains iron control through violence. In 1986, when his childhood friend Isaac Bolden betrays him by robbing his girlfriend, he ordered his murder. In 1987, he ordered the execution of former girlfriend Myrtle Misha Horsham, despite her being the mother of his child. He later stated, "She was my girl and she took my money and spent it on another person." In 1988, his mother's house is firebombed and Fat Cat's half-sister Mary Nichols was killed in the fire. No one was identified for this attack. However, it is widely believed that the firebombing was a retaliatory act related to the violent environment surrounding his criminal activities. By 1988, he had already been convicted. But the cold-blooded murder of police officer Edward Byrne in February 1988 by his associate Pappy Mason created a public outcry, and the authorities turned up the heat on Nichols, facing an impossible choice. His mother faced 20 years. His empire is crumbling. As law enforcement intensified their efforts to dismantle his operation, Nichols found himself increasingly isolated and vulnerable, forcing him to make desperate decisions to protect himself and his family. And in 1992, he pleads guilty to the Rooney murder and received 25 years to life. He also pleaded guilty to federal drug-related charges and racketeering-related murder charges, and subsequently received a sentence of 40 years in prison. The sentence was to be served concurrently with the state charges. While he could have been facing life in prison for the federal charges, Nichols was given a lighter sentence for agreeing to cooperate with the authorities. His main motivation behind this decision was to help his mother. And as a reward, his mother was sentenced to 5 years probation and a fine. It is also said that Fat Cat snitched, but there is no evidence to support this. But it is widely stated that he snitched on himself. In 2010 from his cell, Fat Cat writes to the Daily News, "I came to prison a brazen young man in my 20s, and now I'm a humbled middle-aged man of 51. I have nothing but time to ponder my misdeeds. To the victims of my criminal activities, I offer my deepest regret and sincerest apology," he wrote. His influence lives on in hip-hop lyrics, with songs from 50 Cent to Nas mentioning him. In April 2022, Fat Cat, aged 64, was granted parole from state prison, but still has a 10-year prison sentence looming in Florida related to a car theft operation. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on today's video and who else you want me to cover. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more.